This is Sam Prell, news writer at Games Radar. Sometimes a change of pace is good. Sometimes not so much. The more one thing differs from what came before it, the more it's going to feel out of sync. That can be a problem, especially in video games. Case in point, boss fights. A boss fight has to feel different enough to be distinct, but familiar enough that it feels like a natural evolution of what you've already experienced. But sometimes developers miss the memo and create experiences that feel like they're not even a part of the same game. Today we commemorate the mismatched, the baffling, and the frustrating. These are 8 boss fights way different from the rest of their games. Navarro from Uncharted. Uncharted is pretty open-ended in terms of how you beat down the waves of enemies thrown at you. As long as you follow the don't get dead method, step 1 of which is don't get dead, you can shoot, snipe, and blow up mooks to your heart's content in wide-open battlegrounds. All that goes out the window when you go toe-to-toe with Navarro, the game's final boss. The final battle drops our hero Nathan Drake onto a heavily guarded tanker as he tries to stop Navarro from leaving the island with ancient cursed gold. The ensuing battle is claustrophobic as Drake is corralled into a small portion of the ship with only paper-thin destructible boxes to hide behind. Then you get the for realsies final encounter with no weapons and staring down the barrel of Navarro's gun. You'll need to leap from box to box and throw perfectly timed punches with even the slightest deviation resulting in failure.
Well, you found me. Congratulations.
GLaDOS from Portal. Excluding the disturbingly cute turrets, there's nothing out to actively kill Shell during her excursion through Aperture Science. That is until GLaDOS tries to dispose of her via a one-way tram ride into the oven, at which point the portal gun becomes a weapon of vengeance. Once Shell reaches GLaDOS, the object of the game goes from shooting yourself across rooms to tricking the AI into shooting herself with rockets, then incinerating pieces of hardware that contain her personality. Considering Shell's most violent act in the testing chambers is knocking over some sweet-talking, egg-shaped bullet dispensaries, this fight feels a little strange. Plus, the fight is timed, so thoughtful pondering is a no-go. There are still puzzle-solving elements to it, but in a lot of ways the change just doesn't compute.
You think you're doing some damage?
2 + 2 is...
Fontaine from Bioshock. Compared to Bioshock's natural build-up, its conclusion suffers. The City of Rapture is a joy to explore, and you have a plethora of methods you can use to navigate it and dispatch your enemies. It feels like a real place with real inhabitants. Then you meet Fontaine, who just screams, "I am a video game boss!" First of all, the very square, very flat arena where you fight Fontaine is completely separate from Rapture, making him feel like a level unto himself. Second, Fontaine follows the early 90s boss fight design philosophy to a T, with multiple, well-defined phases and special attacks for each phase. Not a great way to end an otherwise original vision.
Oh, not much. Just a little game I like to play with all my annoying guests.
Ms. Ruby from Sly Cooper and the Thievius Raccoonus. Sly Cooper is a mammal of many talents. From sneaking to swiping to stealing the hearts of foxy ladies, there seems to be nothing Sly can't do. Which is good, because in the middle of some plot-relevant sleuthing, he travels to the jungles of Haiti and must defeat the reptilian mystic Ms. Ruby in a voodoo dance-off. Ms. Ruby's main method of attack is throwing objects conveniently shaped like PlayStation buttons, which you have to match in rhythm to keep Sly from getting knocked on his tail. Each time Sly passes one of her rituals, Ruby loses a fat chunk of health. Okay, so it's not presented as a dance-off, but that's totally what it is. It even has lyrics. Big, bad, big. Voodoo. As for why this fight pops up in the middle of a 3D platformer about a stealthy raccoon, well, not even Bentley can answer that. The Doppelganger from Prince of Persia. No, not the Sands of Time trilogy or that 2008 Prince of Persia where they say fertile weird. We're talking about the 1989 original where you're forced to confront a shadowy doppelganger. Hurting the copycat hurts you, and many princes were turned into mincemeat trying to defeat it. Turns out, the answer to defeating the doppelganger is to have the prince sheath his sword and walk up to the shadowy other, joining with him in one form. Clever? Yes. Symbolic? Sure. But this pacifist solution bewildered many players back in the day, since there are no other circumstances where the prince can lower his sword without being ruined by enemies. If you've been taught to slice and dice everything in your path, suddenly being scolded for it feels more than a little strange. Adele from Final Fantasy VIII. If there's one thing the Final Fantasy games have taught us, it's that the solution to every problem is beat the shit out of it. Childhood rival, vicious dictator, malevolent half-sword, half-clock god, the answer's the same. Kick the ever-living bejesus out of it and the universe will thank you. That's why Final Fantasy VIII's Adele fight, where you have to avoid hurting a friendly party member attached to the boss's chest, can take a little getting used to. Following a series of events far too complicated, long, and dumb to explain here, monster sorceress Adele comes down from her space prison on a wave of sky demons to absorb leading lady Rinoa. This forces the party to fight Adele while simultaneously making sure not to brutally murder their friend. Ranged attacks and summons are no good here, so here's hoping you didn't neglect your melee tactics for the past few dozen hours. Otherwise, have fun loading that save file. Gruntilda from Banjo-Kazooie. Banjo-Kazooie prides itself on being weird. It has a sentient cheat code book, garbage disposal whales, and an in-game game show. This quirky little title plays by no rules but its own, and its rules are freaking weird. Except, that is, for the final boss. Just as Banjo and Kazooie climb to the highest point of the game's overworld and fight the kidnapping witch Gruntilda, things play out like a generic boss fight. It's disappointing when you look forward to more corny fun and get the same kind of final battle you'd play in any other game. It's pretty normal as far as video game fights go, which makes it weird for Banjo-Kazooie, its normalness being the weird thing. Ow, 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 my brain.
So, they've sent Freeman, have they? Good man.
The Strider Battle from Half-Life 2 Episode 2. One of the most difficult fights in all of Half-Life 2, the Strider Battle that ends Episode 2 is made 5 times harder by the Magnuson device, a magnetic ball you attach to Striders then shoot to blow up. While the idea of one-shot killing a Strider is sick as hell, it's less amazing in practice. The devices can only be found at far between dispensaries, so God have mercy on you if your aim is bad. And even if you manage to attach the stupid little ball to a Strider, you better be ready with that shotgun, because if you're not fast enough, it'll deactivate and you have to start all over again. Son of a goddamn God! If you enjoyed this video and want more just like it, follow Games Radar at youtube.com/GamesRadar.